Hey there, welcome back to the Lead with Levity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Walker. And as an industrial organizational psychologist, I've dedicated my career to helping people understand what actually contributes to and takes away from their professional effectiveness. And today I want to talk to you about something that can absolutely change your career. Something most of us didn't grow up learning: how to build a support network that actually works for you. Let's start with a quick scenario. Imagine that you just wrapped up a presentation to leadership. You worked late for days, got buy-in from your team, you tightened every single bullet point, you really paid attention to your message, right? You spent a lot of time on this. But when decisions were made, your project barely got any attention. You thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, but it's like everything that you had to say either bored the group or maybe they didn't want to hear what you had to say. You just couldn't figure it out. But you weren't getting the kind of excitement that you expected. And then, your time is done for your presentation, and someone else comes up and presents something else, and everybody just jumps on it all of a sudden, and there's just so much energy. And you're left in the background wondering, what did I do wrong? What didn't here? I've been there, and I know I'm not the only one who has maybe felt like they were trying to advocate for themselves, trying to advocate for their team, but maybe didn't have any support in the moment. They didn't have that support system set up in place so that when you present, everybody's jumping on and giving you the love and saying, yes, this is the plan. This is the best plan since sliced bread. We need to do this thing. So if that's ever happened to you, I want you to stick around because the topic for today is something that affects all of us, which is support. Specifically, how do you build a strong network that helps you grow, navigate challenges, get the resources and the recognition that you deserve? This is going to be a 4-part series. Today, or at least I'm planning on it being a 4-part series. Hopefully I have the energy to finish up all four, all 4 parts. Today, I'm going to dive into the 5 types of people that you want to have in your corner at work. Part 2 is all about hidden power moves that are happening behind closed doors that you can't afford to ignore. Part 3 is, how do you know if you're missing something called relationship equity? How do you know if you're missing that? And in part 4, I'm going to cover some strategies to increase your influence with each of these groups. So you're in for a treat. I used to be anti-networking, anti-politics. I didn't want to be involved, and I tried to stay out of everything. And I can't even lie to you right now and say that I love networking or I love politics or any of that. I've just come to understand the place that they have in an organization. Whenever you get a group of people together, there is a need for networking, and guess what? There's going to be some politics. It's just a part of it. So I've learned to accept that and to figure out, what does that mean for me? And what does that mean for anyone who is trying to navigate that kind of environment? And you didn't grow up having conversations about these things at the dinner table where you just kind of intuitively know how to navigate the political landscape. If that's you and you're like, I didn't grow up with that and I don't quite understand it, I would love to opt out of it altogether. So I want to just let you know you're in good company. I'm there too. But the side effect for me, because I didn't want to be involved, I tried to stay out of everything. The side effect was that I ended up actually being excluded from a lot more than I realized. There was a consequence, a negative consequence to that reached farther than I didn't even realize personally. So you see, there is a political game that's happening every day at work. You can't opt out, especially if you have goals and you have ambition. You can't opt out. If you just want to go to work and you just want to be the fry guy and you just want to do your job, clock in, clock out, go home, don't ask me for anything extra, fine, you can opt out. The consequence of that may be, though, when layoffs come around and they start talking about all the people that they want to keep and all the people that need to get let go, your name might end up on that let go list because they don't really know you that well. They haven't seen you in action, right? You've been kind of under the radar this whole time, which means that They're like, okay, if they're here, that's great. If they're not here, I don't know what the impact is if they're not here. So I'm going to tell you, if you're listening to this podcast, you are not the kind of person who wants to just be the fry guy. You have goals, you have dreams, you have ambitions. You cannot afford to just opt out. I'm telling you, you can't, because you may just find that you've opted out of support too, and that's not what you want. So when I first stepped into a management role, I was so super excited. It was a promotion, so I was already familiar with the company. I knew what needed to be fixed. I knew what needed to be improved. I had a plan in place in my mind, and I was so ready to just step in and hit the ground running. And I spent years working hard just to get to this point. And I felt like I was finally in a position to create some real change. But it didn't take long for reality to hit me. I quickly realized that being a great manager wasn't just about leading my team. It was about navigating competing priorities. It was about office politics. It was about power dynamics. And I inherited my team. Some had been with the company for 20 plus years. Some had just graduated. I had to get them all on the same page with my new vision and my priorities. And I had to show them that I was actually there for them and invested in their success. I was constantly competing with other managers for resources and for more budget, asking to get more people on my team, trying to get leadership to give my priorities attention. It felt like a never-ending game. And it wasn't like a game of checkers, it was a game of chess. You had to be 5 to 10 steps ahead to get ahead, just to get noticed and to get the resource and to get everything that you needed to be able to do the job that they wanted you to do. At the same time, I was juggling what I thought was best for my team with what my manager expected, and we weren't always on the same page, right? So there was this caught in the middle situation because I also had my peers to deal with. I worked in HR and I was in charge of learning and development. We served everyone, literally everyone, and everyone wanted something from us. Some of my peers, they were friendly to my face, but they were absolutely ruthless when it came to advocating for their teams. I was kind of caught off guard, honestly. I didn't expect all of that, all of the competition from other managers. And I had to be really mindful because if I wasn't careful, I'd get shut out of conversations that directly impacted my work and my team. So even though I wasn't in a direct service role myself, and we weren't out there, meeting every single day with customers and consumers and all of that, I still had to make sure that employees had the skills that they needed to meet customer needs. Or, I'm going to use the word customer, I'm going to use the word consumer interchangeably here because I know that some of you have customers, some of you have consumers, some of you have clients, right? So when you hear me say client, customer, consumer, I'm pretty much talking about whoever your end user is. So there I was, trying to make my team happy, trying to make my boss happy, trying to keep my peer relationships intact with these new peers that I had, and trying to ensure that our work was actually making an impact. And I felt isolated. I felt lonely. I hadn't fully appreciated the power of building relationship equity because I thought that what got me to that point was working hard and doing all of the things and showing that I could do all of the things all by myself. And even though I had a good reputation and I worked well with my peers, I didn't have a full, robust, when you think about the 5 types of people that you need in your corner, I had maybe a couple of those, not all 5. So relationship equity is the value that you build in your professional relationships over time. It's the trust, goodwill, credibility that you get when you're constantly, consistently adding value, when you're supporting other people, when you're showing up for them in meaningful ways. And the stronger your relationship equity, the more people are going to advocate for you and open doors for you and include you in those important conversations. So I want you to think about relationship equity as access, right? It's all about access. One of my roles actually involved overhauling our onboarding program. Actually, I think I've overhauled an onboarding program in every role that I've been in now. But there's a framework that I want to bring up that came out from the Society for Human Resource Management at SHRM, and it outlines something called new hire socialization. So if you're feeling nerdy, you want to look up a concept, you want to sound smart in the office, look up new hire socialization, and you'll learn some really interesting things. Because most companies focus on things like policies, processes, technology, and when you come in, they're telling you about all of the what you need to know. Here, right? This is where your desk is at. Here's what you need to know. You need to do this by this time. It is due when, huh? It's logistics. But work happens through people. And new hire socialization is all about knowing who to connect to, finding mentors and coaches, and having a manager who is actually invested in your success. The good news is that we can all start to build our networks from where we are right now, even if we didn't focus on it so early on, right? So even if you wake up today and you're like, I'm lonely, I go to my car and I cry. I cry during lunch, during breaks. I don't want to be here, all the things. I would encourage you to pick up just a little more energy. Think about this concept that I'm going to share with you today, because no matter where you go, you're going to need to do this. So it's best for you to start now. Start where you're at. This is a competency that is going to serve you well in life. I've learned that being great at your job is only one part of what you need to focus on. Work happens through people, and people help us interpret all of the messages. They help us figure out, what should I be focusing on? What should I not be focusing on? What do they mean by that? How do things really get done here? So you need people in your corner who are going to help you interpret things. You need people who are going to speak your name in rooms that you're not in, who are going to pull you into opportunities and advocate for you when decisions are being made. Otherwise, you're working, but you're playing the game at a disadvantage. So I want to talk about the 5 people that you need in your corner. And as I go through this list, I want you to think about your current situation, what's working for you, and what actually seems to be missing. And if you manage a team, I want you to think about how you can help each person on your team build their own support network outside of just you. It's great that you're there. It's great that you're a supportive manager. I feel that. It's great. But we also want to make sure that they are planting roots at your organization. And they can't do that if you are the only source of support, energy, nutrients, information. They need more. They need more. So, group number 1, right? 5 types of people you want in your corner at work. Group number 1, guides. Guides. These are people who have either been there before and they have some experiences to share with you to help you navigate the system and avoid mistakes. Guides can also be people who have a process that they use to help you improve the way that you approach your work. So, in essence, guides are your coaches and your mentors. Why do you need them? If you don't have a guide, you can spend a lot of time on the sidelines watching people play the game, trying to figure out what they're doing and why. You can spend years doing this, honestly. And so many people do. They think, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to go it alone. I'm not going to get a coach. Coaches are for, people who, whatever, insert whatever thoughts you have about that. and they try to go it alone without that support, without the roadmap. And you start guessing and making assumptions about what's going to work, and your progress on projects and even your ability to make moves in your career can just take a lot longer because you're literally figuring it out as you go. A good guide saves you years of trial and error. And as humans on this earth, I'm going to take a step back. I want to get on a soapbox, y'all. We have been on this planet for a long time, and society is only where it is now because of the work of the people who came before us. So, how dare, I'm going to say, how dare you, but how dare me, how dare us think that, you know what, I'm not going to think about anything that happened before. Sure, you tried this and you tried that, and okay, grandpa, whatever. Guess what? They could save you years. And I've reached a point where if I could have a conversation with someone, a 15-minute, 30-minute, 60-minute conversation with someone, and that conversation unlocks something in my mind that gives me an idea that allows me to shortcut years of trial and error, I'm going to have that conversation. It is worth it. It is worth it to invest in yourself. I have never, ever regretted that. So, let's do a quick check-in. Do you have the right guides in your life? Maybe you think you have guides, but do you have the right ones? I have 5 questions for you. Do you have at least one person that you can go to for career-related advice? One person, career-related advice. Have you received useful guidance in the last 3 months that changed how you approach your work? Useful guidance. You know, when I was first starting out and learning all the things, right? Learning how do I type? How do I do this? How do I work on this program? Useful guidance to me back then used to be, hey, I noticed that you're actually you're clicking through all the menu items to get to the actual procedure, whatever. I know I'm not saying that right. Did you know you could hit Control C, Control V, all of these wonderful keyboard shortcuts, and that is going to save you so much time and maybe some carpal tunnel in the process? What? No, I did not know that. You just saved me maybe an hour or two with all of these different shortcuts that you just showed me. Do you have people in your life who are giving you information, shortcuts, tips, experiences, helping you understand, hey, I see what you're doing, but you know, if you did it this way, you could actually have better outcomes. You could get farther faster. It doesn't have to be that hard. And are you willing to listen? Are you actually listening to those people all the time to give you advice? And sometimes that advice falls on deaf ears. So, off of my soapbox, back onto the questions, the 5 questions. I guess I feel like ranting today. The next question that I have for you to think about is, has someone more experienced than you given some advice that helped you avoid making a mistake? That's important too, right? Not just, hey, here's a shortcut, here's a tip, go do your thing, but also, I see that you're about to step in something. I want to warn you, watch out, this is coming. Or, hey, I noticed that you have this meeting on your calendar with this person right here. And these are some things that they don't like to hear. These are some messages that really work well for them. You know, that is gold right there. That can save your reputation. That can save you from making a mistake that would cost you and set you back. And you might not even realize that you're set back. So, do you have someone who can do that for you? Do you understand the unspoken rules of how things work in your company or your industry? Every company, every industry has unspoken rules. And once you know the rules to the game, you can win the game. You can play the game, you can get better at the game, and you can win the game. So, what are the rules? Have you figured those out? And are you figuring everything out on your own, or do you have someone guiding you? So, things to think about. Do you have a guide in your life? At least one person. If you can have more guides, that's even better too. Because honestly, it would be great for you to have a technical guide, someone who can help you think through the actual work that you do. It would be great to have a guide who is more of a soft skills kind of person who can help you with your communication skills, how you show up, how you present and carry yourself, and how you're received and your reputation, that kind of a thing. And bonus, if you have a guide who is outside of your company, who is perhaps an industry guide, someone who has been in the game for a really long time and can help you put everything that's happening into perspective, that's really important. This is something that may not resonate with anyone, but as an entrepreneur, social media is a piece of what we do. We get the word out about what we do through social media. We're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn. Those are probably our two most active platforms that we post on. And Meta is has something called like a weekly planner. And they give you goals every single week for your posting goals. And I remember a few days ago, I logged in and I looked at the posting goals for the week for Facebook and Instagram. And I said, this feels unreasonable. Like, I want to hit this because a part of me feels like if I do the things that Meta is asking me to do, then we'll get more reach. We'll be able to touch more lives, get the message out to more people. At least that's what they're telling us is supposed to happen. But the amount of posting that it's asking me to do feels completely unreasonable. So I'm a part of a coaching group and I posted in that group and I said, hey, Meta told me that are any of y'all doing this? Because this feels like every week it just wants me to do more and more. Should I do more and more and more? Is that really what I should be doing? And one of the OGs came in and said, hey, for the last 30 years, this has been a thing. Even back when it was just Google, Google used to release heat maps where they told you where to put certain things on your web page and you had to follow this heat map, but it wasn't necessarily designed for your good. It was designed for Google's good to make sure that Google is getting everything, all of the traffic and the eyeballs and everything that it needs, but it's not for you. Rant. Another rant, apparently. I digress. I'm sorry, y'all. All that to say, she jumped on, and then a few others who had been in the game jumped on, and they said, Heather, you don't have to worry about that. You need to focus on making sure that the content that you're releasing is good content. And don't worry about those goals that they set for you because they're bogus. They're absolutely bogus. And I needed that perspective because if I didn't have that, I would have continued to try to achieve some unrealistic goal. And it was driving me crazy, stressing me out. So you need a guide. Second type of person that you need in your corner are sponsors. These are typically decision makers and leaders who have a lot of influence. They have the power to open doors for you simply by saying that they trust you, they agree with you, they know that you're ready, and people should actually listen to what you have to say. That is the power of a sponsor. When the stakes are high, you can count on them to pull you past whatever barrier that you're facing. Okay? You can have sponsors inside of your organization. You can have sponsors outside of your organization. If you are a W-2 employee, you definitely want a sponsor in your organization. Sponsors and decision makers can include your manager, board members, executive staff, and other leaders if you're working on a committee, for example. Why do you need these people? Because they can advocate for you. They can make sure that your work is seen by the right people. If you don't have a sponsor, you might as well be invisible in those higher level discussions, okay? Earlier, when I talked about layoff conversations, people who don't have someone advocating for them in those rooms are usually the first people to be on the chopping block, unfortunately. So, my reflection questions here are: has someone in leadership spoken positively about your work to others? Can you name at least one person in power who would vouch for you if you needed some support? Has your name come up in discussions about promotions, big projects, or any other leadership opportunities? And have you had a direct conversation with a senior leader about your work? Last question, don't be mad, but if you left tomorrow, would someone in leadership try to keep you? So we talked about guides. We talked about sponsors, right? Guides, sponsors. Let's talk about collaborators. I love collaborators. This is a very large group of people. Like sponsors, collaborators are your colleagues. Dare I say, your allies, people who can support your ideas, and they actually reinforce your credibility. But they may not have the power to make that final decision. So imagine suiting up for battle, or we don't, most of us don't suit up for battle anymore. We just go to stressful meetings. So imagine you're gearing up for your next meeting. For me, the most stressful meeting that there is, one of those meetings that is a leadership meeting, maybe even a board meeting where there's just a bunch of people in the room and there's a lot of self-promotion going on in the meeting and people shouting out certain peers for doing things that are amazing. And it's just like, what is happening here? I've taken some time to analyze what is happening here. I've been in situations like that, and I didn't have as many people shouting me out or shouting my team out. But it was clear to me that the shout outs were actually strategic and they were intentional. I had to learn this over time. They're strategic and they're intentional. They are meant to grease the wheels, right? To make it easier to get approval for certain requests later on in the meeting. I even discovered that managers would meet beforehand, right? You meet before the meeting. It's called a pre-meeting, where we get on the same page. We agree to reinforce each other, to validate whatever the other person is going to say. We basically are saying, hey, what are we going to focus on in this meeting? What do we want to accomplish? I think this person is going to have this objection to it. How are we going to handle that if that comes up? Okay, you're going to have my back? Great. I appreciate that. Thank you. You actually have a conversation with your peers and you talk about what you want, what kind of partnership you want from them, and what they're going to get from you as well. And it's so much easier to push your ideas forward when you have people backing you up. I want you to take a second and listen to the questions that I'm going to ask you about collaborators to see, do I really have collaborators, people who have my back? Question 1, do your coworkers actively support your ideas in meetings? Have you and a peer agreed to support each other's work? Have you partnered with a colleague to move an idea forward? Do your coworkers trust you and value your input? And finally, do you feel like you're working alone, or do you have allies to kind of help push your ideas forward? So to recap, guides, supporters, sponsors, guides, sponsors, and now we're moving into colleagues and connectors, okay? So guides, sponsors, colleagues. Next one is connectors. Every organization has people who are in the in group and people who are in the out group. I'm not saying this from an emotional place. It just is what it is. Every group, every organization has in groups and they have out. Connectors are the kind of people who have insider knowledge. They hear about things before they happen. People tend to rely on them for the inside scoop. And what's cool about connectors is that they can warn you about a decision that's coming before it's even announced, right? They can let you know how people are going to feel about a decision that you're thinking about making. So this is a powerful group of people. When you have a good relationship with someone like this, you can easily find yourself knowing about opportunities before they even become public knowledge. And you can find ways to sort of shape and massage and craft your messaging so that it's more likely to work with people because you've got this connector who's giving you really solid intel and feedback. So, questions to ask yourself when you're thinking about connectors and do I have these people in my life? Do you know who has inside knowledge in your company or in your industry? Have you learned about an opportunity or challenge before it was officially announced? Do you have someone that you can reach out to when you need insight on company decisions? Has someone shared important updates with you that helped you prepare for a meeting or a project? And do you find out about key decisions at the last minute, or are you always informed? I want you to be flexible when you think about connectors because they have influence. They may not have the title, but they have influence. People like them, or they just know so much about people that people are afraid of them, right? So, they may be your coordinators, your admins. They may be the person who's cleaning the building, may be a connector, someone who's in the know. Those are the individuals that you want to get to know. You want to have them on your side. You want to be able to tap into that information superhighway that they've got. And the last group of people are consumers. This is a group that I want you to keep an eye on. These are your internal customers and your external consumers, customers, clients. They benefit from your work, right? And they validate your impact. What do I mean by this? If you don't understand their needs, you're going to spend time working on solutions that they don't want and they don't need. They won't get excited about what you have to offer. And you may even see limited improvement, limited outcomes, limited impact. Going back to my story as a learning and development leader, I had a lot of internal customers and they all had different needs, different things that they wanted from me and my department. For instance, managers over direct service areas wanted their people to see as many clients as possible in a day because that's what our income depended on. They essentially wanted everyone to do their jobs faster with limited errors, and they wanted training support, but they didn't want to pull people away from their caseloads. So we had to get really creative and prioritize just-in-time micro-learning when possible. I'm talking about people in direct service mental health roles, but I've also seen the same thing with manufacturing, for example, where you don't want to pull people off of the line for training, but you want them to be trained and you want them to be competent. So it's where there's a gap here, right? We have to think about them as our customer. What are their needs? How can we meet them where they're at so that we're giving them what they need and what they want and giving it to them in a way that they can really appreciate it because they see the value and they see how it's helping them do their jobs better. So, do you understand your customers, whether your customers are internal or external? Do you clearly understand what they need from you? Have you adjusted your work based on direct feedback from the people that you serve? This is huge. And it sounds so simple, but I don't want to call out certain industries. But if you're getting feedback from other departments that your department isn't responsive, that your department isn't meeting the needs, your department is not providing quality information, it is up to you to get out ahead of that, to meet with the other department head to find out where are the bottlenecks? What is going wrong? Why isn't this process running smoothly? Don't just say, oh, well, y'all just complain all the time and push it back on them. No, 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 no. Because it hurts you too if they're not getting what they need to be able to do their jobs. It hurts your whole company. So Do you regularly ask for feedback so that you're making sure that your work is useful and relevant, that you're not just putting things out there and expecting people to use them and appreciate them, but you haven't fully understood the problem you're solving with that solution that you just threw out there? Have you received positive feedback from people who actually benefit from your work? And do you feel confident that your work is making a real impact? These are hard questions sometimes to ask yourself, but they're very important questions. And they're going to help you see, I want to build a network of people who can support me, who can support my team, who can push us forward, who can lift us out of all of this heaviness that we're in, and they can propel us forward. What am I missing? These questions are going to help you figure out, what are you missing? And I think most of us understand this at some level, but we don't always recognize how much it impacts our ability to be effective at work. When you don't actively build and maintain these relationships, you can start to become isolated and miss out. That's what I talked about at the very beginning of this episode. You might hear about changes way too late, and now you've got to scramble to adjust. So if you feel that your projects don't get the resources that they need because no one is advocating for them. You might get passed over for promotions because no one sees you as a key player. You might feel isolated, like you're always fighting for every inch of progress. On the flip side, when you build the right support system, you're going to start to get requests for all kinds of interesting things. You're going to have to start learning how to say no. That's going to be your new problem. How do I say no to all of this stuff? You don't have to chase every promotion or every resource because you're actually going to have people in your corner pulling you in. But it's not just like you flip a switch. It's more like a dial, because the amount of support that you receive is directly tied to your relationship equity. If you don't have sponsors, connectors, collaborators, people advocating for you, and guides to shorten that learning curve, you're always going to feel like you have to fight for every inch of progress. I personally had to get to the point where I stopped fighting office politics and started recognizing that I was operating from a mental model that was holding me back, not anyone else. It was holding me back. So here's the reframe that helps me, and hopefully it's going to help you too. With the right relationships, you don't have to chase opportunities, they come to you. So if you've ever found yourself surprised by a major decision, or you felt like you're constantly playing catch up, you might be missing one or more of these key relationships. And what I want to close with today is, the more people who know you, trust you, advocate for you, the easier your job is going to be. And if you're missing even one, you're going to feel like you're constantly fighting this uphill battle. So let's make a pact to never again try to succeed in isolation, to stop telling ourselves that asking for support is a weakness, to build the relationships that match the legacy we're working so hard to create. If this resonated with you, I'm working on a course to help you identify, grow. I'm working on a course to help you identify, grow, and strengthen each of these 5 relationships. It'll also have a diagnostic tool in there, some conversation guides. And if you want to be a part of this group, this beta group, and it's still open, I want you to reach out to me on Instagram at Lead with Levity or on LinkedIn, and I'll let you know how to get plugged into that. Until next time, keep leading with levity.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Levity podcast. To get resources mentioned in this episode and find out what we're all about, check us out at leadwithlevity.com.